All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahawashi. I want to give double honors to the apostles of great mercy that rule well. Salutations to the men of the hopeful and sincere elect. This is Makazar from the Trend.com. Just, I don't want to do a little edification for the elect's sake. And, yeah, the lesson today is about Yahawashi and Isaac being the same person. All right. You know, some people don't believe in reincarnation, but the Bible goes into that. But guess what? Only those with eyes can see after being taught, you know, through the lines coming down from the apostles all the way down through the Spirit of the Most High. All right. So we're going to get straight into it. This is Galatians chapter 3, verse 16. It says, "Now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. He said not unto seeds as of many, but as of one, and to thy seed, which is Mashiach." Right? And to thy seed, which is Mashiach, because guess what? Yahawashi and Isaac was the same person. All right? This is Matthew chapter 1, verse 1. It says, "The book of the generation of Yahawashi Mashiach, the son of David, the son of Abraham. And Abraham begot Isaac." All right? Now, Isaac and Solomon and Yahawashi was the same person, but today we're going into Yahawashi and Isaac being the same, being one and the same. All right? And the direction I'm going to head into is the incident where Abraham was told to sacrifice his son Isaac. All right? So we're going to go into that. This is Hebrews chapter 10, verse 4, it says, "For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and of goats should take away sins. Wherefore, when he cometh into the world, he said, Sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body thou hast prepared me. In burnt offerings and sacrifice for sin thou hadst not pleasure. Then said I, Lo, I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me to do thy will, O God." And this was talking about Yahawashi, because the book written about Yahawashi. All right, and I'm going to go into that. It says, above, when he said sacrifice and offering and burnt offerings and offerings for sin thou wouldest not, neither had pleasure therein, which offered by the law. It says, Then said he, Lo, I come to do thy will, O Yahawashi. He taketh away the first, that he may establish the second. So the first sacrifice for sin was what? Was sacrificing a lamb or a bull or turtle doves. But guess what? As the scripture said in Galatians 3:24, the law was our schoolmaster. So the law, the physical side of the law, was bringing us onto the spiritual side, which is Yahawashi. Understand? It says, "By the which will we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Yahawashi Mashiach once for all." All right? So Yahawashi was that spirit, was that lamb. All right? Yahawashi was always that sacrifice. Yahawashi was always that sacrifice. And he said what? I come in the volume of the book. This is Luke 24, verse 44. "And he said unto them, These are the words which I spake unto you while I was yet with you, that all things must be fulfilled, which were written in the law of Moses and in the prophets and in the Psalms concerning me." Concerning him. So guess what? Yahawashi came in the volume of the book. The things that were written in the Old Testament was symbolically representing what Yahawashi would do in the last days. So Yahawashi was who? Was that lamb that the Most High sent to take away the sins of Israel. So when Abraham was about to sacrifice his son, it wasn't only a test of faith, but it was also symbolically representing what was about to take place a few hundred years after. This is Romans chapter 9, verse 8. It says, that is, I start at verse 7. It says, "Neither because they are of the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called. That is, they which are of the children of the flesh, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of God, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed." All right? So guess what? So Isaac was the son of the promise. So the promise was passed on to Isaac, then to Jacob, and then to Jacob's 12 sons. Because the scripture said he put by Esau and took Jacob. All right. So the promise was passed on from Abraham to Isaac. And as the scripture said in Galatians 3:16, the promise was made to Abraham and his seed, which is Mashiach. The reason why he said Mashiach, because he showed you that guess what? Isaac and Yahawashi is the same person, going back to Matthew chapter 1, verse 1. All right. This is Genesis chapter 22, verse 1. And it came to pass after these things that Yahweh tempted Abraham, which would tempt means a test, and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, I am here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah. Now remember that word Moriah, and offer him for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled an ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for a burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of which Yahweh told him. And on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood and the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto his father and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? And guess what? That shows that it had the laws before then, but the laws was taught verbally. But since that we didn't want to keep the laws, the Lord basically put it blatant in front of our faces. All right. And Abraham said, My son, Yahweh will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together, and they came to the place which Yahweh told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of Yahweh called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him, for I know that thou fearest Yahweh, seeing that thou hast not withheld thy son, thy only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thickets by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. All right. So guess what? It wasn't only testing Abraham's loyalty to the Most High, but symbolically representing what the Lord would happen to Isaac in the later days. Because where did he tell him to go? In verses 2, he said, And he said, Take now thy son, thy only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah. So he tell him where to go, into the land of Moriah. And that is where he sacrificed, that is why he went to sacrifice his son. All right? That is where he went to sacrifice his son. But the Lord replaced Isaac with a lamb, and gave a lamb at that time to be sacrificed. But in these modern times, the lamb which taketh away the sins is what? Because the scripture said rams and goat couldn't take away sin. This is John 1:29. The next day John saith, Yahawashi cometh unto him, and said, Behold the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sin of the world. Because in Hebrews 10 it said Yahawashi died for the sin of the world only once. Mean that once Yahawashi died, it conquered all, because one lamb would have been shed for one man back then. But now the spiritual lamb, which is Yahawashi, died for the sins of all. Because symbolically, the sacrifices that were done back then was representing what Yahawashi was coming to do. And by Isaac being about to be sacrificed on Mount Moriah was symbolically representing Yahawashi who was to come. Who was to come. All right? So Isaac would have been sacrificed on Mount Moriah. So now we're going on. We're going further. This is 2 Chronicles chapter 3, verse 1. Then Solomon, who is Yahawashi, by the way, Solomon began to build the house of Yahweh at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah. So where Isaac was to be sacrificed was in Mount Moriah. And now Solomon building the house of the Lord in Mount Moriah, which is in Jerusalem, where Yahweh appeared unto David his father in the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. All right? So the tabernacle of the Lord was built in where? In Mount Moriah, in the threshing floor of Ornan. All right? That is where the Lord told Solomon to build the tabernacle, and also where he told Abraham to go and sacrifice his son. Now when you look up the word Moriah, it means the Most High chosen, or the Most High had seen. So the Most High, chose that place. All right? The Most High chose that place. Now to prove that it is in Jerusalem, let me bring out our next scripture. This is 2 Samuel chapter 22. Yeah, 2 Samuel chapter 22. No, it's my bad. I believe it's 1 Samuel. You know what? Let me search it. I can't remember exactly where it is. Boom, boom, boom. Let's see if I could find it. Here it is. This is 2 Samuel chapter 24, verse 16. It says, and when the angel stretched out his hand upon Jerusalem to destroy it, Yahawashi repented him of the evil and said unto the angel that destroyed the people, it is enough. Stay now thy hand. And the angel of Yahweh was by the threshing place of Araunah the Jebusite, which Araunah and Orna is the same person. All right? Where David bought the piece of land to put the tabernacle of the Lord, which basically is Jerusalem. All right? Which basically is Jerusalem. All right? So now, I want to show some maps. Now, it says here, the temple on Mount Moriah. All right? It says Jerusalem, city of David on the eastern ridge and the old city core. So it shows that Mount Moriah and Jerusalem is the same place. Mount Moriah is where the tabernacle was. All right? Here is the highest point of Mount Moriah. You have the garden tomb. All right? Skull face, the place of the skull of Golgotha, where Yahawashi was crucified and laid to rest. So guess what? So you actually see what I'm going into, with the Spirit leading into. Mount Moriah, where Isaac was to be sacrificed, and where Yahawashi was sacrificed, is where? Is one and the same place. One and the same place. Okay, you have again, it says this ancient cemetery is the highest point of Mount Moriah. And it shows here the garden tomb, Genesis 22, where Abraham sacrificed his son, and what? The place of the skull. Same place where Isaac was sacrificed, was to be sacrificed, is where Yahawashi was sacrificed. All right? Here you have, see if I could zoom this in a little bit. All right, so it's not zooming. All right, so it says the place where Melchizedek offered sacrifice to God is Mount Moriah. The place where Abraham offered Isaac, Mount Moriah. The site of the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite, Mount Moriah. And the place where Solomon built the temple, Mount Moriah. All right? But guess what? Also in Mount Moriah is where is where Yahawashi was crucified. All right. It says Moriah. It says Moriah. It says is the name given to the mountainous region by the book of Genesis, in which context in the location of the sacrifice of Isaac. Through association with the biblical Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount. Mount Moriah has been interpreted as the name of the specific mountain at which this occurred, although this identification is typically rejected by scholarship. All right, it says biblical references. It says in the Torah, name Moriah Hebrew occurs twice with minor differences in spelling between different manuscripts. Tradition has interpreted these as the same place. Genesis, it says, then God said, take your son, your only son, whom thou love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah, sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on the mount I will show you. So Mount Moriah is where Isaac was to be sacrificed. And when you go to 2 Chronicles, it said, and Solomon began to build a temple of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where the Lord had appeared to his father David. It was the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite, the place provided by David. So Jerusalem and Mount Moriah is the same place. All right. So now we go into the scriptures. This is the book of John. John chapter 19, verse 17. It says, and he bearing his cross went forth into a place called the place of a skull, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha, where they crucified him and two others with him on either side, one, and Yahawashi in the midst. Let's go back to the pictures. It says what? He was crucified in the place of the skulls, or Golgotha, which is in Mount Moriah. So Yahawashi was crucified in the same place where he would have been crucified had the Most High allowed him to be crucified back then by Abraham. All right? So it just shows that, guess what? This is just one of the many facts showing that Yahawashi and Isaac was the same exact person. All right? Through reincarnation. All right? Through reincarnation, they were one in the same person. All right? And I hope it was edifying. I hope it was edifying, to the elect, food for the elect. All right? And, want to give our praises, honor, and glory to Yahawashi. Want to give double honor to the apostles of great mercy and true well. Salutations to the men of the hopeful and sincere elect. This is Makazar from Train.com saying shalom and stay strong.